Curator Chats with the curators of the Museum Center at 5 Points. I'm Lindsay.
I'm Elijah.
And I'm Hope.
And today we are going to be talking about our podcast, The Curious Curators. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely go check it out. We have, I think, about 4 episodes up. I think it's really enjoyable, but of course I'm biased. But we hope that it's educational and entertaining for you. And today we are going to discuss it further, kind of give you guys an inside look on what we're doing and how we feel about things, and just some background and insider info on the episodes. So the first question to start off with is, how did the podcast start? How did it come about?
Us talking all the time. Well, I think that sorry, I just kicked my camera. I think that I was really pushing for the podcast. I wanted a podcast or a YouTube channel, and I annoyed everyone in the office about it for a very long time. And we kind of settled on a podcast just because we already have those like sort of talks and everything. Basically, just like what you would hear on the podcast is how we talk to each other pretty regularly. So it seemed kind of fitting.
Yeah, and you wanted to be a famous YouTuber, right, Hope?
That's true. No one agreed with me on the YouTube front, except for now, here we are. So, I mean, progress.
Yeah, I think a podcast was a lot easier to put together. I think the YouTube front is a little bit more involved. Maybe that's just me, but it gave us a chance to be more educational than we are in the office, because in the office it's usually a conversation where someone says, hey, do you guys know about this thing? And then we start looking things up online and continuing the conversation there. So it's a little bit more informative because we actually come to the table knowing what we're talking about, but it's still kind of an extension of our regular conversations. What has been your favorite podcast so far?
I really like the serial killers one, and that might just be because I really like the subject matter. I listen to like true crime all the time anyway, so I really enjoyed like that one because it's, I mean, let's be real, it's one of my favorite topics to talk about regardless. So got it out there to more people, you know.
Yeah. I also enjoyed that one, but I think I liked The Patriot, like the historical inaccuracies of The Patriot so far, as ones that we have released so far. Yeah. That's probably the one that I have liked the most, just because I remembered loving The Patriot and being all about it, super into The Patriot as like a kid, and then rewatching it was very interesting with the knowledge that I have now. I'm like, what in the world were they I don't know. So very interesting. But the serial killers one was interesting too, because I just did not know really anything about that at all. So it was fun to hear and research that. So
yeah, I have to agree with Elijah, except I did not enjoy it when I was younger. And I think on the podcast, I said something like, Hope said, oh, I loved it in the 5th grade. And I said, oh, I hated it in the 10th grade. I was not in the 10th grade while Hope was in the 5th grade. We're the exact same age. We are 5 days apart. I just didn't see it. I just didn't see it until the 10th grade. I didn't watch it right when it came out. I saw it later in like the 10th grade in like an English class or a government class or a social studies class. I don't remember. Oof. But I did watch it later in high school, and it might have just been my age where I didn't like it. I was, 15, 16. So you don't really like anything at that age anyways. But that was my favorite one to listen to afterwards. I don't know. I really just enjoyed listening to that one. And each of us had a different take, and we all had different information to put out there and like different styles. Like I was nitpicking scene by scene, whereas like Hope did a lot of background information, and Elijah kind of had some like overarching stuff and a little bit of nitpicky stuff. So it was nice because it kind of combined all of our different styles in the best way out of all the podcasts, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of banter on that one too, which was nice. I think that
Yeah.
that makes it fun, because that's where we have those conversations. It's like banter across the room, like, well, I didn't think that, I thought this, and then it's like, wait, let me look that up. And then it's like back and forth. So
and we picked on each other during that one, which, well, I usually get picked on, and that's all right.
You do it to yourself, though.
I do have an easy target.
So if it might be different, but what has been your favorite to research? Not necessarily to listen to or to create, but the researching process. Which one has been your favorite?
Mine was actually one that'll come up soon. My favorite one was the music festivals, which was a big surprise for me. I didn't really go into it thinking this is going to be my favorite. I thought my favorite would be either the serial killers or a different one that's coming up as well. But I really like the music festivals. I always like reading about just like those in general because I do enjoy them, but I like to read about just like the absolute chaos that stems from them. But it also like made me remember how much fun I have at music festivals, and like really lit a fire under me to like get back into that this fall since they're not going to happen in summer.
Yeah, I think that we filmed some good ones, or recorded, filmed, not filmed. We recorded some good ones this last week, and so I think there's some that are coming up that are really good. And I really liked the set that we had this last week. One that we haven't come out with yet that we will be releasing soonish was cults. That I thought that one was super interesting just because there's so many, and like we initially only wanted that to be one episode, and then we realized how long it was going to take to talk about everything and how much information we had. And yeah, so that one I definitely feel like I had a lot of information, and like there's so much that we still didn't even get to say, or we probably could have talked for like 3 hours consistently, just like back and forth across about it, because there's so many things. But that's probably my favorite one.
Yeah, I guess that one was actually one I really enjoyed researching. I don't know that there's one I enjoyed researching the most, but I will say that I was the most thorough in researching with the Patriot. Even though I did not get to talk about corn as much as I wanted to. I had a lot of information on corn during that episode. So that one was fun to kind of go through and nitpick scene by scene. I actually really enjoyed researching that, and I learned a lot about corn.
Jeez.
Yeah, I had half a page on why the corn in the Patriot was inaccurate, which is excessive. It took me 8 hours to finish the film. It took me 4 hours for the first hour, but and then I decided that I could not do the second half like that. I couldn't be that nitpicky. So yeah, maybe that one was my favorite to listen to and my favorite to research. It was easy for me to just sit and nitpick scene by scene. I mean, it was tedious, but I could say, what's that thing in the background? I'm going to look that up and make sure that's accurate. So, what do you guys find is the hardest part of the podcast, like the most difficult part of the podcast for you? Researching or recording or anything?
I think like researching can be a little bit tedious if like maybe if it's not something that like you're really interested in, or you're just not connecting with the subject matter as well as you want to. But I also think that I have some difficulties with recording it. Really recording or filming anything, I come up with some issues just because some of the things that I like want to say or that I would normally say in like just a talk, I can't say on like the, you know, like record. I mean, you can say anything on the internet, but in polite company, I guess, like I just sometimes speak like a sailor. So, me, I really have an issue with making sure that I keep myself like in check and remember that I'm not just like talking to my friends, but I'm talking to an audience. And that's honestly one of the hardest parts for me, just because I just talk all the time.
Yeah, I think that right now it's kind of weird just because we're in this weird time in general. So like recording over the interweb is weird. It's just a weird thing because you lose sort of the fluidity of like conversation and that sort of thing. So it's been a little different since we have been isolated. But I would say that's probably for me like kind of the weirder thing is like the wanting the fluidity of conversation even in person and feeling like kind of, I don't know, like the conversation needs to go a certain way or something when like we can have the conversation flow wherever conversation leads, sometimes that's how we learn anyways, is like we just go in circles and then we're like, oh wait, now I know this point. And so yeah, that's been the most difficult for me. What?
Like when we're in person, we can read each other's facial expressions and know like when we're done with this topic just because of like the way that someone looks, or like, no, maybe don't say that, or like keep talking about it. Just little things that you don't even think about.
Yeah, remote recording has been really tough because we, in order to get the best recording possible, we do audio only on a different platform just because when we're using video, it garbles the audio a little bit. You sacrifice some of the audio for the video. So we've been doing audio only, and that makes it really hard when you can't see somebody else's face. And then for a few episodes, Hope had a lag, and that was really tough to work through.
Yeah.
But in general, disregarding the remote recording, just in general, I think the most difficult part can be the length of the podcast. We all get so much information that it's so hard for all of us to cram it into that like 30-minute approximation. So it's been really difficult for me to just get what I want to say out there, and then we'll get that 5-minute warning and we'll realize we haven't talked about something really important.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden we have to cram that in there. When we were talking about the Patriot, the church scene, we realized we hadn't talked about when we got the 5-minute warning. In the plagues and pandemic, we realized we hadn't talked about the Spanish flu or the Black Death and had to cram it into that last 5 or so minutes. So for me, it's so much of our notes actually don't go into the podcast. We take so many notes and then we end up not being able to even use it all.
Right. Especially when like sometimes there's like something in there that we want to talk about. Like I took so many notes on colonial America. Like I took some notes on colonial America for the Patriot, or just like for like the next one. So many notes on like Soviet Russia, or even on the one that'll come out today. So that's going to be after that'll be before this video airs. But like Nazi Germany and like Mussolini's Italy, like I had so many notes on them, and I like hardly even spoke about it. And I mean, I had like 10 pages of notes typed on like what those regimes were like. Why did I do that?
Yeah, and I think the 30 minutes is like, I don't know, it is very restricting with conversation too, because it's like we all have each like in our minds we have like, okay, I need to talk about these 5 major points, and like we really want to get to all of our information that we researched, and then sometimes it's like, wait, what Hope is talking about is actually really interesting and I didn't research it, so I want to ask questions. And we really don't have right now, with like the length that we're trying to go for, we don't have the space to really ask those questions in a way that is going to allow us to really dive into like, wait, so tell us more about Mussolini's like reign. Like tell us about, you know what I mean? Like tell us more in depth on like what other people are doing. So I agree, that has been tough.
Well, being left to our own devices, because we are recording on our own right now because we can't all be together. So being left to our own devices meant that we definitely pushed closer to 45 minutes. But even on some of it, like during like the music festival episode, I spent like 10 minutes talking about the time that I went to a music festival. No one cared. Who cared? No one cared. But it's a great story.
I think we tend to dominate, though, on topics we're really interested in. I feel like I dominated Death of Stalin, which is an upcoming one, because I was really enthusiastic about it and I have a lot of knowledge about it. And like you dominated on music festivals. And I think that just tends to happen with things we're really interested in.
Yeah, it's true.
So speaking of, what upcoming podcast are you most excited for?
I am excited about the music festival one, clearly, because it's one of my favorites. I think that one is like, I think that one lets you see like our personalities a little bit more as well, because we all like kind of feel quite differently about them, and then we all had like fun stories and stuff to go with them. But I also think that the cults one is going to be really interesting. I think that that's a really interesting topic for a lot of people. So I'm excited for that one to go out in its 2-part glory. Just because I think that one is always a fun one. I think that like cults and secret societies are a big thing that people get interested in learning about. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I think I'm most excited for. I really did like researching the music festivals one. That one was really interesting. There's a lot other than Woodstock that goes into it that like you just don't think about. And so I think that one was super interesting. And I also really liked the Bigfoot one just because there's so much like cultural like things that go into it, and sort of like as America as a nation was sort of advancing, and like there's just so many things that go into it. So it's like kind of cool to see that. And I also, like we said earlier, like whatever you like think about or like dominates your own mind is like what you're probably going to talk the most about. So like I love Bigfoot, or I want to love Bigfoot. I think.
You love the idea.
I love the idea of Bigfoot. Don't know.
Yeah, I was super hateful during the music festivals one. But unexpectedly, I think my favorite, the one I'm most excited for, is the Bigfoot one, even though I am a knower in that I know Bigfoot isn't real. Like, I'm not even a skeptic. Bigfoot's not real. I really liked all of us having those different perspectives. And that one was so hard to research.
Yeah.
So hard to find information on. And it's not that there's no information out there. It's the accuracy of the information. You know, and
like the organizations that it's coming from,
yeah.
It's like, can I trust this? Like,
rabbit holes were also awful. I fell down like some of the longest rabbit holes, and I was like reading newspaper articles from the 1920s, and I was like, what am I doing? Stop.
I usually, when I research, I like to watch documentaries and read articles, because it just mixes it up for me, so I can have something visual and audio and then have something that I just read. And trying to find a Bigfoot documentary with actual historical information and like factual information was so difficult. It was.
Did you find one?
No, most of it was just following Bigfoot hunters around. And I was really hoping for something that would go into the history of it, Bigfoot hunting, or Bigfoot, him or herself, and talk about that. But I really couldn't find any. I ended up wasting most of my time watching Bigfoot hunting documentaries, thinking that there would be something actually helpful for the historical context of Bigfoot. But It really wasn't. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Bigfoot one, although that one was extremely hard to research, and so was Death of Stalin, because when it comes to researching the Soviet Union, it's not easy.
And some of their names sounded like similar, Molotov and
Malankov.
Malakoff, yeah.
That's like, somewhat similar, and I would forget which one I was researching and like get distracted. I have that problem with like Soviet Russia and then like Nazi Germany as well. Some of them had similar names or the same first name.
Yeah, definitely.
Why is everyone called the same thing? Which is like a silly thing to be annoyed about because like clearly that happens. But I was just like, and then my like super inappropriate crush on Vasily Stalin.
I was there for Jason Isaacs. Not gonna lie, that was not planned.
I spent what had to have been hours, literally, like researching like how Soviet like military people wear their like this. Like I don't know why. Like, I guess we talked about in the Patriot like how the clothing. You were like it was so accurate, and I was like, is this accurate? Like I would just feel like that would be the loudest, like most ridiculous thing to have to drag around, but then it was perfectly legitimate. If you look up pictures, there he is, like with his little outfit. Poor guy.
Yeah, I found it really difficult to research that one because there's so many different versions of events. There's like the official version, then there are personal accounts, and it all is contradictory. So there's also the official Soviet version, and then there's the version that they let get out to the West at the time. But then you find out later that's not how it went, and it's so confusing. You have to look at all the dates of your sources to know if this was before or after the Iron Curtain was lifted, and it's an entire mess.
Like, just wait till I wear y'all down and we finally can do the Chernobyl episode.
We'll get there eventually.
I mentioned it today. It's already on my mind. Some people have Georgia on their mind. Me, I have Chernobyl on mine. So.
All right, guys, is there any last words you have to say about the podcast?
If you have any topics that you're interested in, let us know. We will give it a go.
Yeah.
We will consider it.
We'll consider it. We have a list. We have a long list of things.
Unless your idea is Chernobyl, and then I will push for it harder than you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
We believe it.
Lindsay's already like, I'm done with you today. 45 minutes in, and she's like, nope, done.
Well, if you guys haven't listened to it, give it a listen. It's on our website. It's on Spotify. Where else is it, Hope?
It's basically everywhere that you can get podcasts besides Apple Podcasts. It is everywhere else.
And we will work on that eventually. That's something that we have to work on, but harder to do with remote. There's a whole bunch of stuff you have to go through, and remotely it's just not as easy. So once we're back together in the office, it'll probably pop up on there as well.
Yes, and we will let you know when that happens.
Yeah, so give it a listen on any podcasting platforms, Spotify, our museum website. We also feature it on our virtual museum if you're following that. And usually we post about it on our Facebook as well when a new episode goes up. And a new episode goes up weekly on Tuesdays. So keep an eye out for it. We have some really cool upcoming episodes that we've talked a little bit about today. So make sure you stay tuned. This has been the Curator Chat with the curators at the Museum Center at 5 Points. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.